We welcome in 1320 Kings insider James Ham and creator of the Kings Beat. James was Oprah Winfrey last night. It was you get a t-shirt, you get a hoodie, you get a hat. Man, if you missed out on happy hour yesterday, you really missed out, James. I took a peek at something while Jerry was talking, and it's pretty freaking awesome how you've built that community over there, and to see it was like 4 pages worth of Zoom galleries of people on that call last night. That was pretty awesome.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun, and I think the key is that we're telling stories that sometimes haven't been told before, sometimes that haven't been told in 20 or 30 years. Sometimes,
yeah, like the Kings have been screwing up draft picks long before recent memory.
Yeah. Well, no, I mean, if you were on the Zoom call last night, the Jerry Reynolds talking about going back when Larry Bird dropped, he decided he couldn't play for Bobby Knight, and he went home to French Lick, and Jerry was slightly concerned that he wasn't going to jump back in and play, and so Jerry went back to French Lick, Indiana, and Larry Bird is working on a garbage truck, and Jerry just jumps on the back of the garbage truck, and they drive around town like doing garbage pickups all over French Lick, Indiana, and then have beers and like hang out. And I'm not saying that Jerry saved Larry Bird from making a huge mistake and becoming a garbage man over an NBA player, but he certainly had a role in Larry Bird's life that I think a lot of people don't know. And so that's what's cool about the happy hour. We're just like hanging out, talking about crazy stories, talking about the Bobby Hurley story, all of these things. I thought it was a lot of fun.
And another story I don't think I knew about Larry, he had a brother who was really good.
Yeah, Larry has a brother he's younger than Jerry but older than Larry. Mm-hmm. And he had a brother that played collegiate basketball as well. It's interesting. Yeah, Jerry was like the elder statesman of French Lick, who the Birds are close to their family because of the two brothers, and Jerry has a younger brother that was close with Larry Bird and graduated with Larry Bird and stuff like that. So the same age. So like that. French Lick, I assume, is like a really, really small community. But they all went to the town square and played basketball all the time with really high level basketball. Especially, Jerry was a very good basketball player, even though he's not very tall. What do we call him? The Caucasian Comet.
One of the things that kind of made me raise my eyebrows when Jerry was talking about it yesterday, talking to Larry Bird, and he talked about the conversation he had about the trade. And obviously maybe Bird, he doesn't work for the Pacers, but he's close to the team. He watches them, and maybe, he was calling Jerry because he wanted to know more about Tyrese. Maybe he sees him now and it's like, oh man, Tyrese is better than I thought. But Jerry said Larry was like kind of baffled that Indiana would do this. Sabonis is the guy that you build around. And he said verbatim, I think you guys are going to get the better of this trade when it's all said and done. Did that surprise you to hear, Larry Bird kind of feel that way and say that?
It doesn't, because number one, that's kind of how I feel. Number two, I remember talking a lot about the potential for Sabonis last summer, and how that would be the player that I would be after. So that would be the guy. Like if he becomes available, you have to go after him. Mm-hmm. And I had conversations with Jerry then, and Jerry said, hey, like everything I'm hearing from them, they said there's no way that they're going to trade Sabonis. That all this conjecture and stuff that's out there is just, it's not really, it's not real. But there was also part of that discussion. There was a really interesting moment where he said that when the Pacers and Kings made the swap for Peja Stojakovic for Ron Artest, that Jeff Petrie came to him and said, hey, can you call Larry and have a discussion about the trade and about Peja and who Peja is, He said, be brutally honest, and we want to have a good relationship with the Pacers, and we want to make sure that they have all the information that we have, and they don't feel like we're feeding them a line or giving them some other, some misgivings about a player. So he said, I want you to be totally honest and have this conversation with him. And so, yeah, I mean, all of these stories are really interesting how they all tie together. I mean, it is the off the record happy hour. Now we're just like sitting here talking about it on the radio. It's not recorded for a reason, but still, yeah.
Well, I think there's obvious stuff that you don't talk about that's clearly like off the record stuff, but there's also stories that he's told in some way, shape, or form. And listening to Jerry tell stories, because he has such a great form of like self-deprecating humor, and he's just a funny guy in general. They were very, very enjoyable. It really is the highlight of being a premium subscriber over at thekingsbeat.com. So check that out. Again, kingsbeat.com. Become a premium subscriber. These happy hours are well worth it. Sam Amick told some incredible stories. Again, some of them very clearly not meant to be repeated on the radio, but boy, there was some doozies in there. One with Sammy. And then Jerry Reynolds was last night. James hosts these about once a month, and they are absolutely fantastic. Are you optimistic? And I'm not talking 10th seed optimistic. I'm talking about good basketball optimistic for the second part of the season coming up starting on Thursday.
Yeah, I am. I think they're going to get a couple of days of practice. Everyone's going to get a couple of days to clear their head. And I also think, some of these guys, Justin Holiday talked about it the other night that, he hasn't seen his family for a while now. And, his family is what keeps him centered. And so, I feel like it's, the break is always something that's great for these guys. It gets them away from the game. It lets them completely, forget about basketball for a couple of days. And, some of these guys are going to be in like the Bahamas. They're going to be all over the place, like enjoying life, and rightfully so. I mean, they should take this break. And I think coming out of it, you're going to get a couple of practice. You're going to have a good understanding of what it is that we're looking for going forward. And then I think it's going to be like all hands on deck. This is about a sprint to the finish line at this point. The Kings have an opportunity here. And if nothing else, have an opportunity to build chemistry and really define what it is that you need going forward. And I think it's good. Yeah, I think we'll have some good basketball.
Tyrese going to be in the Rising Stars Challenge. It seems like he's a NBA darling now here. And are we making this up? Was Tyrese getting a lot of love nationally, but while he's with the Kings? Because it sure feels like ever since this trade, like I said, they're getting ready to have him on NBA 100 in about 25 years. He's on his way. Is that in our heads, or was he getting the same kind of love nationally, you think, when he was with Sacramento?
No, I don't think he got the same kind of love. I do think that there are certain guys within the national media that really liked him. I mean, JJ Redick had him on The Old Man and the Three, like probably, I don't know, 3 or 4 times. And so I do think that, he does have a national following. There are guys around the league that like him a lot, but not like this, and I think he's been great for Indiana. I think this trade is one that has a good chance to work out for everybody. And that, to me, is the mark of a good trade at the NBA level. The Kings gave up a very, very valuable piece. They did. But they got back an even more valuable piece, in my opinion. And so I think it's going to be really interesting to see how it all plays out here down the stretch. But, I don't like grading trades until like 2 to 3 years down the road, when you actually know the outcome of the trade, when you know who took advantage of who, or if it worked out. I mean, this very well could work out for both teams. And to be honest with you, I think it will work out for both teams.
I think so too.
Yeah, but that's not how this game works, Hammer. Tyrese Halliburton is going to be playing tonight as a member of the Indiana Pacers, and there will be no representation for the Sacramento Kings in the Rising Stars Challenge with Davion Mitchell out. We've asked everyone collectively to avoid the Rising Stars Challenge tonight. because there is nothing to balance out anything Tyrese Halliburton does. So to protect your feelings, watch old episodes of The Office, catch up on a series that you need to see. If you're a Seinfeld person, watch Seinfeld. Just maybe avoid a potential Tyrese love fest tonight on
basketball. I know this wasn't your school, James, but Ponderosa, isn't that in your area? They're like undefeated this year.
No, that's on the other side. So that's on 50.
Gotcha.
So 50, 80, both go to Tahoe, but other sides of Tahoe.
They're like 25-0 this year.
That's impressive.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, do they have any prospects? I don't know.
I know of, no.
Yeah, I haven't looked at their squad, and I haven't followed it. I know that a lot of my my friends in the media world here in Sacramento, they really do get shifted into high school basketball at this stage. I just have never got into it. I don't know. I think it's good. It's good to like be fully in with your community stuff, when it comes to community to high school sports. But as someone who covers the NBA, I'm basically gone the entire school year. So from October until April 15th, you can just like block me out and just understand that I'm not going to be around. Yeah.
Hopefully one of these days we'll get you into May too. How about that?
I hope so. I'm glad I don't have to go cover Warriors in May. And, you guys were talking about the 2018-19 Portland Trailblazers. Is that what it was you were talking about?
I think the Western Conference Finals team.
Yeah. I was in Portland for that entire thing.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I was there, at Golden State in Portland. I covered all of that. There was even a time early in that playoff run where I had got sent to Portland to help out because we were having some issues up there with our NBC Sports Northwest, group that, just covering the team during the playoffs. And they brought me up to write additional pieces and then write from home and on away games and stuff like that. So, I love Portland. Portland's a fun city to go visit. Great food, cool town.
That's 1320 Kings insider James Ham. He's not going anywhere. We're going to come back. We're going to go commercial free till the top of the 2:00 hour. We'll talk more Kings basketball. And I got a question. These guys got a question for everybody. It's a league-wide question, but I am curious. We'll dive into that. It's D'Lo and KC. Brought to you by McQueen of the Violet Frog. The smoothest gin in the world, handcrafted in Brazil, continues here on ESPN 1320. Clear. Last break of the day.
Yeah, man. I feel like the celebrity game should be better than what it is. Like, I like that kind of stuff, but
what do you mean Anjali is there?
There it is.
Well, you know how to pronounce her name. I couldn't say. I would just say
Anjali. I think it's Anjali. Someone asked a question here. Lee Lupeski, who wins a 3-point shooting contest right now? D'Lo, Casey, James Ham, Deuce, or Mo? I'm going to shock the world here and tell you that the winner of that, without any question, the winner is not Casey. It's Morgan.
I love Mo. I'd shoot Mo under the table. I would beat a Curry.
All right. I'll tell you.
I think I'd go Kenny. I think I'd go Kenny.
Two stories. Number one, I went down to UC San Diego for Kings training camp years ago. It was the first year I was with NBC, so 7 years. I think it was 7 years ago. And Deuce was trying to make a half-court shot for some sort of like video, like while we were waiting for practice to end. And he must have shot like 12, maybe 15 shots. And every time he would shoot it and then celebrate, and then it would clank, and we were laughing. Morgan goes, "Hey, let me try once." He's like, "Whatever." So he lets her try. Boom, first ball swish. Like, it was a sick burn, and he didn't live that one down. And then
Mo can go. The handles alone let me know she's real.
Mm-hmm.
She's real.
Oh yeah, she can ball. Yeah. And then the other story was that I was in Houston covering the team, and it was about, I would say, probably 4 or 5 years ago. And we got to the end of practice. They let us in, and Buddy Hield started talking trash to Jason Jones. It was me and Jason Jones that were there. And Buddy said, let me see it, Jason Jones. You got to shoot from the corner. So he threw the ball to Buddy. Buddy threw the ball to Jason Jones. And the professor,
The professor.
I don't think played a lot of. Okay, so he was an offensive lineman at like Long Beach Poly, right? Whatever it was.
Yeah.
But he's not a skills position guy. He came close. He came closer than I thought because I had actually like we shot around one time at the practice facility and it wasn't. I was like surprised that he looks like he maybe had dribbled a basketball like a couple of times before. He definitely looked like a football player playing basketball. Anyway. Buddy started chirping and laughing and then threw it to me and said, all right, James, you're next. And nothing but net. And I don't even know how it happened. But I was talking mad game and Harrison Barnes was talking trash to Buddy. Then I actually have a video on my phone of Buddy admitting that I hit the 3-point shot and I made him record a video. It's the only time I actually shot in a practice facility with any of the players ever. I took one shot. I will never take another shot. It went in. I shoot 1,000% from the corner at NBA level.
Right there. No, that's uncalled for. Even I know that,
right? Oh, you've got to be kidding me.
Yeah. Oh, that was. I saw that too. That like I can't believe you posted that one.
Oh man,
metal. That is pretty funny.
Yeah, there's not that many moments where you get to interact with the players on the court. I've told this story. I'm sure we're coming back anytime. So I know I did tell this story about how I hit Francisco Garcia in the face with a basketball.
Oh no!
That might be a radio worthy story.
Yeah, we could talk about that.
Yeah, just have a terrible time inside.
I do kind of want to see. He really did. I don't hate the idea of seeing Mo versus Casey in a 3-point shooting contest.
Yeah,
I don't think it should be too difficult. I mean, we'd have
Mo
to do
be a formidable opponent.
We'd have to get a talent fee for Morgan. We'd have to get a bag dropped off for her.
And then what can't be outside either. It has to be in an NBA arena.
Probably, yeah.
You don't do outside.
Yeah, you made that 3 on that. Catch that. That's right. Were you surprised? Yeah.
Hella mad.
He was not happy that I made that 3.
That's great stuff. Oh, we're back. When I say Jesse is sick of us, like I mean Jesse is sick of us. He cannot wait for 4:00 so he can get away from us for the next 3 days. A reminder, we'll be celebrating Major Appliance Sale Day coming up on Monday, and we will be back with you here on Tuesday. 1320 Kings Insider James Ham. One of the greatest commercial breaks we've ever had. We're trying to set up a 3-point shooting contest between Kenny Caraway and Morgan Reagan.
Well, wait a minute. They want to see all 4 of us in it.
Okay, I don't need to be in that. Let's not be stupid. Like I don't belong there. I'll keep score or whatever. Like I'll cheerlead. Like I very much know who and what I am. That's not for me. Y'all played at a level. I didn't play there. That's between y'all. James, like I told you about the story about hitting Francisco in the face with a ball, right? Francisco Garcia. No, James, I don't think you did. I hope this wasn't the same day the physio ball popped.
Oh man,
it was not the same day. No, so man, I want to say I could probably look it up because I know who was there that day. It was probably the 2011-12 season, so it's been a long time. I was at practice, and the Kings have this thing at that time where, you know, normally you have a bunch of media relations members, right? So they had, you know, at least 3 on staff that were always there all the time. So Chris Clark, Darren May, Devin Blankenship. Shout out to all those guys. They're all amazing people. Anyway, on Sundays, they would make Daryl Arata cover Sunday practice because they all wanted to take the day off, I guess. They would sit at home and watch football or whatever. And so I showed up to practice, and I think it was only like maybe me and one other person, and Daryl would run the practice, would run the media session after practice. Now, people who don't know Daryl, he's literally like the greatest stats guy in the league. Everyone loves him. He writes the best game book that you're ever going to find. He has championship rings from the 1998 Bulls because he was part of their media relations staff there. And then he has 3 rings because after this happened, the Warriors stole him and took him to San Francisco, where he's now, again, the greatest stats guy of all time. And he has 4 championship rings in his safe at home. So anyway, Daryl, he's not used to he doesn't do this all the time. So what happened was we were standing underneath a basket, and Francisco Garcia was having this horrific day where he couldn't hit anything. Like, we were watching him, and he was clanking every shot. So they started out shooting like half-court shots, and it was him and Tyreke Evans and Dante Green. And the 3 of them, they just kept shooting, and the other 2 were making shots, and Francisco literally couldn't hit anything. So they came down to our end of the court, and I'm standing underneath the basket with Daryl. And I think at this point it's just the 2 of us. And Dante Green and Tyreke are just giving it, just absolutely giving it to Francisco. He was by far the best shooter of the group, without any question, normally. Yeah. Anyway, he starts missing shots, taking just regular around the 3-point line. Yeah, he's missing one after another, and they're laughing so hard. Anyway, he ends up missing one so bad that it came to me, and it got so bad that they wouldn't even go and rebound for him. They were making him go get his own shots because he was missing so much. Anyway, he starts walking towards me. The ball rolls to my feet. I reach down, and I just underhanded it to him. He's looking at me. They're laughing. He turns while the ball's in the air. He turns to like say something negative to them. Turns back just in time to catch the ball right in the face.
Oh, no.
And I'm standing there, and he's just staring at me, and I'm like, "Oh no!" And Daryl Arata is freaking out, like, "That's why we don't throw the ball to the players." Like, I'm sitting there, like, this is not good. He's staring at me. Behind him, the other 2 are now on the ground. They are rolling around, crying, laughing so hard. But you got Dante Green and Tyreke Evans, who have lost it completely. They're literally on the ground, rolling around, and So we got done. I left. It was like, but here's the deal: you got to show up the next day. That's the job. If you write something negative, if you write something positive, you do something right, you do something wrong, you show up the next day like nothing happened, because that's the job. And if you don't, then they're just going to own you. And so I showed up the next day, taking pictures. I had my camera out. Francisco, "Hey, what's up, camera guy?" I'm like, "What's up, man?" I said, "Your lip doing all right?" He's like, "Yeah, I'm good." I'm like, "Sorry about that." He's like, "It happens, man." We had a moment, but again, it was like one of those times where I literally hit him in the face, like smack right in the like lips and nose with the ball, and I felt really bad. But yeah.
Cisco, from everything I've heard, one of the nicest Kings and more pleasant Kings to ever be around. Maybe this is a happy hour conversation, but Ham, name 3 guys where that would not have gone over that same way.
Terrence Williams. That probably James probably would have got absolutely, like, that would have probably been ugly.
He went third person. It was so bad. He went third person.
No, that's JJ Hickson. JJ Hickson. No, that's JJ Hickson. No, Terrence, that's a whole nother story. That is
he's buff.
Yeah, but he also, like, I mean, he's out of the league because after he left the Kings that summer, he brandished a firearm with his former fiance and the mother of his child over in a custody, and he never played again in the league. But incredibly talented. One of those guys with crazy court vision. I'd say he wouldn't have taken that. DeMarcus would have given it to me. Like it would have been like it just depends on the day, I guess, with DeMarcus, but that would have been an
He would have
interesting
threw the ball back
situation.
at you.
Yeah, probably. And besides that, like I don't know, like the Kings haven't had like a bunch of horrible people. Like
Right.
that's not what it is.
Right.
Like bad culture is very hard to like put your finger on what is bad culture and what is good culture. Yeah, it definitely could have been worse. And with Francisco, what people didn't understand, he was like the godfather in the locker room. That was the first time I'd been around like you knew who the leader of the team was. He was the guy. And that was such a weird feeling because he wasn't, at that point he wasn't great. He was like an end of the bench guy, but that was his locker room. He sat in the middle. He had all the Jason Thompson, Dante Green group on his right. He had the DeMarcus Cousins, Tyreek Evans group on his other side. And like it was very specific, like it was his locker room. There were even times where DeMarcus said something inappropriate when we walked into the locker room, and Francisco yelled at him and then said, "Media, please stop for 1 sec. He doesn't mean what he says. He's young. He said something inappropriate. Please don't take that against him. Please don't report that. I'll have a conversation with him." And we're like, okay, like that's fair. Like you always give someone like one of those, and then you hope that you don't have to have one of those moments again. But it was like his locker room for sure. Very different dude. Very different feel in the locker room with him there.
Have you ever walked into like walked in to do meeting and someone was really pissed about what you wrote and like just like sped walk to you? So, James, I got to talk to you.
DeMarcus would look at you and then go like this. He'd give you the finger, like come to me.
Summoned
to you. And I had a conversation with him about, like we've talked about this before, where he asked about technicals, like why do you always write about all the technicals I get, or did I deserve that technical? But another time he said, why do you always write about all the technicals? And I told him like, look, I'll make you a deal. You don't get any more technicals, I won't write about them anymore. Like it's about context every time. If you were a guy who got a technical once a year, or once every 2 years, like or there are players in the league. I think Mike Conley has never had a technical. Anyway, my point is, and even like Sharif Abdul-Rahim had, I think, one technical, and it was when his mouth was wired shut after he broke his jaw, and he got a technical while his mouth was wired shut for saying something under his breath. But with a lot of the guys, sure, like you can sense an uneasiness, like, and I've walked into the locker room when people are asking about people on Twitter, like, the where's baby giraffe? That was like an interesting, I think Harry Giles said that one time, Buddy Hield said that one time, like, who's this guy on Twitter who keeps saying these things? But overall, there's not a lot of it. Like there's,
to be fair, we all say that about baby giraffe. Who is this guy on Twitter who keeps saying this?
Yeah, there are times where I've had like media relations pull me aside and say, hey, someone's not happy with you, or hey, I'm going to pull you aside with a coach after practice because you wrote something that they didn't like. I remember they did not like a title that Keith Smart didn't like a title that I wrote, which was Kings Don't Get Smart. And it was kind of like a double meaning, but they didn't understand him. And, I think it was after Isaiah had like 27 points and 8 assists in the third quarter and didn't play in the fourth in a tight game. And there were some players in there that were very upset. And it was like, why are, like, I think he pulled me aside. Why are you trying to mess with my locker room? And I'm like, I'm not messing with your locker room. Like, dude, did you read the article? I literally had direct quotes from like your 3-star players. I had direct quotes from them. That's not me being divisive. That's them literally telling us that. Like that's where they were at that point. Like, I don't know what to tell you. So yeah, I mean, it does get interesting in there for sure.
And talk about this a little bit, James. It doesn't last from things I've heard, right? Like I don't want to say very rarely, you can speak to it, but it seems like it's not always you wrote something bad, they don't like you, and they don't like you for 4 years. It's usually like a couple weeks, then maybe they say something to you, you guys talk about it, and then after that, it's all good. Is that typically kind of how it goes?
Yeah, I'm a guy that if I wrote something about somebody or if something went sideways, I'll go address the player. Like I've always been that way. I don't have a concern about it. I would rather like, I think the Willie CauleyStein thing when I did media on media day. I sat down with every single player because that was part of my job with NBC is to sit down with every player, every coach, and have like a 5-minute thing. And one of the first things he said was like, "I want to get paid." And so I wrote that. I had video backing it up, like all of it, and they tried to spin it like that's not what he meant. And I'm like, yeah, you're not going to do that to me. Hey, like, that's fine. You can try that with somebody. But if you guys want to play that game, I'll just put the tape out. That's fine. Like, I don't have any problems with it. We have it at NBC. We'll just roll the tape and I'll put it on Twitter of him saying, I want to get paid. It wasn't out of context. There was no other context you could take. He thought he was going to get paid. He thought he was going to have a big season and get paid. So like moments like that where sometimes you got weird pushback from the organization about specific things. It was like, look, I'm not going to play that game ever. I never got once told what to say, what not to say. That doesn't mean that we weren't team partners, but like there's some like misconceptions about what it means when you're a team partner. They pay NBC a lot of money. NBC makes a lot of money off of television rights and stuff like that. But as far as what I wrote, what I said, anything else, it was never, ever anything that I was asked to say or said specifically for the franchise.
Was that because did he say that twice? Because didn't someone ask him, and this may have been you, someone asked him like something about someone's contract, and he's like, I'm trying to figure out how I can get paid like that. And I feel like he lost the whole fan base after that. It was to hell with Willie CauleyStein after that remark came out. Or after, I feel like there was a video of it, but I don't know if this is the same one that you're referring to.
No, I mean the one I'm referring to is literally him in a sit down where
that wasn't it. Okay,
he just goes off and says like, "Hey, I just want to get paid," and it was like, oh boy, like on occasion you can like let me try to figure out what you're trying to say to me there. There was no question about what he was trying to say. So, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different situations like that where sometimes you pull a player aside and say, okay, this is what you just said. Play the tape. Is that what you meant? And they're like, oh, no. That's not what I meant. That's not at all what I meant. And I've always been one that, again, I'll give someone, one time of saying something or doing something. Like if they keep repeating it again and again and they know exactly what they're saying, then that's one thing. But even I know Jason Thompson one time, he just used the wrong word in a discussion. And I came back to him and I'm like, look, I'm going to play this. And he goes, oh, no. That's not at all what I meant. This is the word I was trying to say, but it didn't pop into my head and I used that word. And I'm like, well, those two words have different meanings. And so I'll go ahead and burn the tape because if it's an honest mistake, it's an honest mistake.
Jason was like, I can play the 3. You mean small forward? No, I meant I can play 3 straight minutes. I didn't know, not small forward. No. That's not what I meant.
Yeah. We had a funny discussion on the happy hour about that.
Yes, you did.
Yeah. It was
you
Pete
did.
Carrill thought he could get anyone to play the 3. And I was like, oh man, is that where that came from? Wow, that Jason Thompson can play the 3. And then I remember the game where Paul Westphal goes, all right, everyone thinks Jason Thompson can play the 3. Started 3 bigs, and it was like, oh no. Like it was not some next level Cavs thing we were watching. It was like this hideous style of basketball. It was like, oh, never do that ever again. Whoever's idea that was, no, that's not happening.
Hey James, we talked earlier on the show about the three best memories or moments from this year, three worst memories from this year. We'll start with the positive. Three moments that come to your mind about this season so far. Positive, three best. For instance, we had triple overtime in Los Angeles.
Yep.
The first game against with Sabonis. And I had HB hitting the buzzer beater in Phoenix was one. I had a random one. I'll admit it was random.
It was random.
The day before Thanksgiving, Marvin hits the three in the corner. The crowd goes crazy. He yells at the crowd. I just thought that was it was a feel good moment a little bit.
I thought the Chimezi 3 was a feel good moment.
It was
The
forgot about
Chimezi game winner.
Mhm.
I think that's one of the highlights of the season because it took an incredible amount of faith from De'Aaron Fox and Chimezi Metu. And so it's one thing when Harrison Barnes hits a game-winning three. Like, Harrison Barnes has hit game-winning threes. But it kind of made me think of the time that Scal Labissiere hit the game-winning three. And it was like, huh, look at that. Yeah, good for you, Scal. But with the play that De'Aaron made on that specific, there was no spare time. It was a laser to the corner through a window that you could hardly see, and it was right below us, and Chimezi caught and fired in one motion, balls out of his hands with like 0.1, 0.2 on the clock, and nothing but net. Yeah, so I think that might be one of the highlights of this season, just because it's a guy who, is working his way into the league, who comes up with the big play.
Mm-hmm.
What's the low light? What's the like if you had to pick like this was the worst. This was the worst moment of the season.
Man, that's tough. Like, we saw a couple of really, really bad losses, right, throughout the season. There have been some low moments. I think it might have been like the 8 games where Fox was just gone, and because it just put such a weird strain on everyone. That was bad. I don't know. Outside of that, the puke guy.
The
that's
takeover,
funny.
the takeover, the Laker takeover.
No, you're right. You're right. The Laker takeover. Actually, that, to be honest with you, that's one of the darkest moments of my time covering this team.
Wow.
Oh.
Yeah, because when you really, your fans got ran out of the building. That to me was like, that was really, really sad. That was a moment where, like, the team didn't show enough heart, enough spirit, and you literally got embarrassed on your home so bad that another team's fan base, which, was probably a 50-50 split, but they just like blew you out, and your fans had no response, and you had no response on the court. I think a couple of other, the "we're not quitters" moments by Alvin.
Yeah, I hate that you had to say we're not quitters moments
It was
because there were multiple. I hate that you had to say that.
Yeah, I mean, that's weird, right? And
Yes.
I've never been through that at all. So, like I've said this a couple of times,
We're not going to quit, guys. We're not going to quit.
Yeah,
Alvin,
I've never
again?
quit. Yeah, he said
Again?
I've never quit anything in my life, and I'm like, yeah, I get it, dude. I get it. You're not going to quit. I wouldn't quit either. I don't quit things. But at the same time, like the idea that you felt the need to say that, I thought was stunning. Like, yeah. So this has been a season full of lowlights. And in my career, I mean, I was, when the team tried to move to Anaheim, when the team tried to move to Seattle, the Rudy Gay injury was one of the worst things that I've seen.
That was tough.
Because that was on my end of the court, because I used to sit on the set on the end, and right when he did it, I was watching, and I was in Toronto when Kevin Durant did that as well, when he popped his Achilles and the fans started cheering. That was one of the worst. That was probably the single worst fan moment that I've ever been a part of, when the fans in Toronto just started. I mean, they were fully cheering on that Kevin Durant had popped his Achilles. And if you watched the play, you knew right away that it was a blown Achilles. There was no other question. Yeah, there's been a lot of like really, really bad moments in my time covering the team. And a couple of good ones, like Tyreek Evans hitting the 50-footer at the buzzer. That was incredible, and it came right at us. It just kept curving, and we were leaning, and then boom, the whole place lit up like a candle. Yeah.
This team is so exhausting that it actually took me a minute to remember if this was in fact this year. Warren asked, "Was Marvin's refusal to go into a game this season?"
Mm-hmm.
And I looked at his comment like, "No."
Yes, it was.
Yes, it was this year
against Phoenix.
We've lived so many lives this season.
It's been a long season. This has been a long season.
It's funny because I always go through this when
Doug Christie was a coach this year.
He was. When DeMarcus got traded, people would say, well, what were your thoughts on him? And I'm like, man, he was so much better this year, right? Everything, he was just so much better. And then I went back and I'm like, okay, just this year alone, DeMarcus Cousins got into a fight at a bar, which was not him. It was Matt Barnes getting in a fight in a New York City nightclub or bar. And, he didn't get arrested, but almost. When he got traded, he had 15 technical fouls. When he got traded, he had been in 3 major altercations with media members. 3. One with Leo. One with Pierre. That it has moved on to Minnesota, which was random and weird. And then one with Andy Ferrillo, which was not good at all. And that same season, he had been suspended by the league and fined $25,000 for yelling profanities at a Warriors fan that was ready to go into Vivek's private lounge. And then I thought to myself, he only made it to February. And I kept telling myself that he had improved and this was the best we'd seen. And that's when I realized that we had Stockholm syndrome. That's
Kings fandom though, in a nutshell. That's what you just described with one individual player is what we're talking about with the Kings. Yeah. Wait, was Doug the coach this year? Yeah, that was this year. Marvin didn't go into the game? Oh, that was this season.
Yep.
Wow. I mean, De'Aaron's ankle is pretty recent, but by the time we get to game 70, was De'Aaron's ankle thing, was that this year? Oh, yeah, that was this year.
Think about how long ago it feels Luke Walton coached the game. It was a long time ago.
It feels like Alvin Gentry has been the coach the entire year.
Yeah, I mean, Luke Walton got fired this season, in season. I mean, the Kings had a game where 6 guys couldn't play because they were out in health and safety protocols. I mean, we even forget that whole entire stretch where 12 players went out in health and safety protocols. I mean, we've been through it this year. This is, and I'll say it doesn't matter. This is the most disappointing season I've ever covered. Yeah. Now, it might not be by the end of the season, but up until the point that they made the big trade, it certainly was, without any question. This team, I didn't expect them to be a 6 seed. I didn't expect them to I thought that they might be a game over 500. I thought 42 wins was probably a pretty solid conservative guess. This team just didn't play well at all from the beginning of the season until now. So, yeah, it's really crazy.
Shout out to, real quick, KC Spectre 707, who asked, those Tyrese DMPs, was that this year? Yeah, that was definitely this year, Spectre.
Yes.
This year. Number one,
it's a great
Halliburton fan club here.
The president.
That's what it was.
El Presidente.
I'm convinced they kept saying Halliburton because they didn't know his name was Tyrese, but that's another story.
So we got the All-Star game coming up. And me and Damien, we spent 2 segments talking about what the Kings would need to do to get the game here in Sacramento. We're not going to go down that again. But I got a question for both of you guys. How many years before we see another Kings All-Star?
Next year.
I wanted to say it. James said it. I wanted to, but I don't know. I couldn't go there.
Okay. All right. So it's collectively it's DeMontis. It's Sabonis, or are we back on the De'Aaron as an All-Star train? Or are we actually talking about Tyrese and we're Jedi mind shrinking this into saying he's a Sacramento Kings All-Star?
To be honest with you, Damien, I don't know.
I don't know either. How about that? I think if De'Aaron is an all-star, it's because of Sabonis. But I also think that
Okay, that's fine.
that clearly the West is stacked, but I think there's a pathway here. All you got to be, if this is a team that's above a game above 500 at the All-Star break next season, then I think they have at least one All-Star that gets in, because that would be a monumental change. So, I mean, you gotta win.
So, but at the same time, there's not much going on at the center spot in the West. I guess AD, Jokic, obviously, but we don't know what's going on with AD. We never know what's going on with him. DeAndre Ayton, and that's it. In the West.
He might not be in the West next year. We don't know what's going on with Ayton. They decided not to extend a contract.
Yeah, that's an interesting one.
So Sabonis probably would have the easiest path.
Yeah, yeah, I think so. But then again, it's front court, right? So what if Kawhi and Paul George come back or playing up to standard next year? I mean, it's not going to be easy for any of them. I mean, Damian Lillard is going to come back, so that's going to make the guard situation, muddier. And so I think there's a lot of ways that that the Kings could, miss out. Yeah, Gobert. But I think that that Sabonis has a pathway here without any question. It really does depend on wins and losses, and that's it. Like I think the only one that I can remember that really got like favorable outcome at All-Star Weekend on bad teams, it was Kevin Love. Like Kevin Love used to make the All-Star team even though his team was just absolutely trash, and so but you gotta, if you're the Kings, you gotta be there.
It's big Kevin Love.
Yeah.
big Kevin Love. He needed that extra size there. The cold in Minnesota. That's fascinating. Both of y'all think there's going to be a Sacramento Kings All-Star next year.
James said it.
Good for you. No, hey,
I don't know.
I'm with it.
I wanted to. I feel that. I don't know if I want to say it.
Have you thought of?
I'll be late on this one. That's okay. I'll be late on this one.
Yeah, I always go into the season with positive vibes. Like there are seasons where I know that you have no chance. Last season being one of them, where I just thought you just had no chance. My first season, where I knew where that team was going from the opening tip, but I always walk in with at least like well, we'll see what happens. You never know. I walk into almost every game going, I don't know what's going to happen. Like I have an idea what's going to happen, but like I'm going to sit here and enjoy a basketball game.
Did the Chicago Bulls game play out like you thought? Like sitting down to watch that game, did it because it played out. I don't want to say it played out like I thought. It played out obviously I would have loved for the Kings to win, but the way the game went was exactly how I kind of hoped it would go.
No,
because I didn't think they were going to beat the Bulls.
No, I didn't think so either. No, I thought that game you were going to walk into that game knowing that the team you're playing is much better than you and that they're on a roll and they have a player who's on one of the biggest heaters we've ever seen. And, I think to be honest with you, when Davion wasn't available, that was a moment I was like, okay, this team doesn't have any chance because you needed that one other guy that could single-handedly take someone else away. And I to be honest with you, that's a different game if he's defending Kobe White. So, I mean, that dude went off for 31 points, like almost like quietly, and that just wouldn't have happened with Davion. Davion would not have allowed that to happen. They're similar sized guys. He might be a little bit bigger than Davion, but that would have been a fun matchup, and it would not have looked like that. It wouldn't have been wide open three after wide open three after wide open three.
Kobe maybe would have had a good game, like 22. Yeah. I don't think he would have had 31. Jesus.
Well, and the difference right there is like huge. Like, it would have just taken
6-point game, right?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
I think that's ultimately what 120.
They lost by 7.
7-point game.
Yeah, I think if you could have limited that one extra player, you would have had a shot. Because what happened in that game was they were playing really solid defense on DeMar DeRozan. He was still getting buckets, but he was right around, I think, 14 points at the half. You had to start diverting some of your attention to Kobe White because he just kept hitting shots. And once you did that, then it was like DeRozan's just going to eat you alive. He's an MVP candidate. How about that? I got him in the top 3 right now in the MVP
That was the question I was teasing. That NBA question I was teasing earlier. Who James? We'll start with you, then KC. You said he's in your top 3. Who are your top 3?
Yeah, right now it's probably Giannis, Embiid, and him.
Okay.
I think Steph is like right on the fringe. And then
wow, James just hates Nikola Jokic.
Oh no,
God,
and Jokic.
James
Yeah,
just hates him.
and Jokic. That's my top 5. Yeah.
If I don't put Jokic number 1, I'm a hater. So I just wanted people to.
Did you see that stat that like he's set up to have the greatest PER in the history of the game?
Nikola Jokic is?
There's never been a player to average 25, 12, and I think 5. And his stats are so incredible that like he literally has the highest PER in the history of the game right now.
Wow. That man is tough. Jokic is a bad dude.
Casey, you got a top 3?
5. Yeah, it's the same 3. Same 3.
Wait. What 3 though? Because James named 5.
Giannis, Embiid, and DeRozan. I got those 3.
Oh, wow. Kenny, I hope y'all tagging Kenny and James in these Jokic hater tweets because y'all was all over me last year. This is a wild twist of events. I have Jokic in the top 3.
Out of who's out?
What a baby face turn. Actually,
Giannis.
Child, please.
Oh, okay.
I ain't disrespecting Giannis like that. I'm disrespecting DeMar DeRozan. I got Joel. Jokic and Giannis, and I have no clue who my pick would be right now. Like I'm leaning towards Joel, but I think I'm trying to will Joel to an MVP at this point, whereas Giannis has got a couple. Jokic, it's really wild if Jokic gets the MVP, given what some of the national media, the people who actually vote on this, had to say about Giannis after his second MVP. It's pretty wild if we're really leading to, if stats are suddenly important when deciding who the MVP is, and we're leaning towards Nikola Jokic, man, what a wild twist of events that's been. Because y'all had a different level of energy with Giannis Antetokounmpo after he won his second. Go ahead, James.
Yeah, his PER is 32.6 right now, player efficiency rating. I mean, he's like one of the most dominating seasons we've ever seen. 7.9 assists, 13.8 rebounds, 26 points. And I think I would probably, like if I'm thinking about it now, I probably do move Jokic up because he's doing it without Murray and without Michael
Porter Jr.
Michael Porter, yeah. Michael Carter Williams popped into my head.
Michael Porter's trying to keep his car from getting towed.
Kings fan MD does bring up a great point.
Yep.
For basing it on just the national media, Halliburton may be the MVP now.
That's a good point. And I think that's where we will leave today's show, and we